What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another tutorial. Last week we added the ability to import external assets and attach them to game objects in our scene. In this episode we're going to be creating the basics for scrolling. Now this is going to be the basics, so you're going to be able to scroll, but you're not going to be able to, like, we're not creating scroll bars or anything like that, but you'll be able to scroll. So like the title says, scroll basics. So the first thing that we need to do is, in the mouse class, we need to add scrolling, which we don't have already. So in here, let's create a private static int scroll, and it's going to just be at 0. And since it's private, we also need the ability to grab it. So position, let's go public static int scroll, scroll, and we're just going to return scroll. Now this is going to be our stored value. So we need to use callback to actually set this value, and it's always going to be 0. So if we scroll like this, that's going to be 1. Scroll down, that's a -1, and after every frame it sets back to 0. So we can always check if scroll is greater than 1, then we're in the process of scrolling upward. If we're in the process of scrolling downward, then it's going to be -1. But if we're not scrolling at all, it'll remain 0. So that's exactly how we want to set it. So something else that we need is well, not really something else, but right down here in the reset, no, not the reset, the constructor. So in the constructor, we need to call GLFW set scroll lowercase b, I believe. So we're going to call GLFW set scroll callback, and we're going to pass in application dot window, because that's one of the parameters that it needs. And I'm going to be using new GLFW scroll callback. And in here, we need to new GLFW scroll callback. Oh. Come on. There we go. I just had an extra thing in there. Alright, so it's going to give us this method. So invoke is what's going to call anytime anything changes with the scroll wheel. So all we want to do is anytime it's invoked, we want to set scroll to equal int offset. Y offset. Yes. And then close this off. Right? Did I know? Because I need to put this. There we go. Now it's set up correctly. And that is all that is. What is... Why do I have mouse wheel events up there? I don't know why it's giving me that. Because I'm not using AWT wheel events. Okay, there we go. So now that we have the ability to scroll, let's see here. Initialized and call system.out.println mouse.scroll. Make sure that this is all set up correctly. And it should print down here in the console what our current scroll is. Alright, so it's at 0 because we're not scrolling. Scroll up, goes to 0. Scroll down, it goes to -1. So it works. It's just that I forgot to go in here, set scroll equals 0. Okay, so now when it resets, now it sets it back to 0. Alright, and that finishes that. We don't need that no more. Now, to test this out, like our actual scrolling inside of windows, or boxes, or whatever you want to call it, we are going to scroll these asset types. I know right now it all fits inside of the window, but there's a couple packages that were, or a couple folders that we're missing that we need to put in there. So we're going to go ahead and put those in, and then add the ability to scroll up and down inside of this window. And I may go ahead and do hierarchy as well, possibly assets. I don't know. We'll see what the time looks like. The inspector, on the other hand, is going to be a whole different challenge. That's a whole nother ball game, because we have to calculate our scroll height. Like for these, all we have to do is just add the amount of asset types and then multiply it by the size of the button. Same thing with assets, the same way. Same thing with I guess hierarchy would be a little bit different as well, because we need to know what all's open and what's not, as to whether it needs to be scrolled or not. So I don't know, maybe hierarchy I'll have to wait as well. But we can most likely do asset types and assets, because I don't think we'll probably run out of time before we get too far. So let's go ahead and go into GUI. In GUI, we need to change a couple things. We need to change how we do our areas. Right now, we use rect area, which is our current area that we're working with. But it's a rectangle. And then we have areas, which is our list of recs. Well, we need to change this because we need to be able to add a scroll to an area, and Well, a rectangle doesn't have a scroll variable, so in scroll methods, so we need to create a new a new GUI area. So we'll put it right here, GUI area, new class, call it GUI area. All right, now this is going to be fairly simple. So what we're going to need is a public rect, which is going to be our area. So whenever we get a list of GUI area, it's basically like having a list of recs because we have a rect variable, but we're also going to have some extra stuff in here. So not only do we need a rect area, but we also need the scroll height. Let's say max scroll, not scroll height. Now this is the maximum scroll that we're allowed to do in this area. And then we need private int scroll equals 0, because that is our current scroll for this particular area. Now we can change the maximum scroll at any point in time. Actually, you know what? I will go scroll height, because maximum scroll kind of tells me that the maximum amount of scroll, which is minus, or what? Scroll height minus area height. And yeah, I don't want to screw myself over. All right, so we need a constructor, which is GUI area rect area. So whenever we create a GUI area, we're going to pass in the area that we want it to be. So then it'll be this dot area equals area. Now we need to add some getters and setters for scroll. So public final int, because we don't want any other script to change the scroll. Our getters and setters will change it for us. So need public final int scroll, and this is just going to simply return scroll. Now for our setter, need public final int scroll, and we need int offset. So here's our getter, there's our setter. Now they're going to look almost exactly the same. They're all going to return scroll. This is so that when you set it, you can also get it at the same time. And you'll know here in a second why we're wanting to get it after we set it. So in here we need to say if area dot contains what do I call it? Mouse dot position. So if the area contains the the mouse position. The reason why we're doing this is so that, you know, when you're inside of this window and you scroll, it's going to scroll. But of course I can't. Okay, so I'm in here. I can scroll this. I'm in here. I can scroll this. So if I'm outside of the window, I don't want to be able to scroll this window down here. I want to scroll only this window. And so we just have to check if our mouse is inside of this area, and then we'll start scrolling it. So we'll say scroll equals offset plus negative mouse dot scroll multiplied by 10. Now let me explain this a little bit. So offset is the amount that we're currently offset. So it would be the number for the top left of this scroll bar. So if we're scrolled all the way up, that's 0. Let's say that this window is 500 all the way down here. Whenever we're fully scrolled out, then this is about halfway up, so it'd be like 250 is the scroll. So that would be our offset that we're passing in. Like there, whatever would be like 100, and we just pass in 100. It modifies it and then passes it back to us. So this is the offset that we're passing in, and then we're adding negative mouse scroll times 10. So I want it to move 10 pixels every time I scroll. So every time I scroll once, it's going to move 10 pixels. You can change that to whatever you want. If you want it to move 20, then move 20. Like this window right here, I would say moves about 30. Roughly about 30 every tick. But I'm just going to do 10. Now, if I scroll up, I go up. If I scroll down, I go down. That's what this negative mouse scroll is for. If you do not want that, and you want to scroll up and it goes down, if you want to scroll down and it goes up, then just remove that negative sign. So it's just your own personal preference. All right, now we need to actually get the leftover amount, which is scroll height minus area dot height. So, like I said, this is the size of the area. This is the size of the scroll from all the way down here, all the way up here. And we need to get the leftover amount, so we only want this area. So we would say float leftover equals scroll height minus area dot height. So it's pretty simple. And then here we need to say scroll equals int mathf dot clamp. And we don't really do this too often either. So the value that we're wanting to clamp is scroll. The minimum that we want is 0 because we don't want negative. Whenever it's all the way at the top, it needs to be 0. We're not going to be able to scroll anymore. So we want it to be 0, and the maximum amount is the leftover. So the highest we can go is to this point. So right here, if it was exactly half, that would be 250. We don't want it to go 500, the size of the entire area. We want it to only go to 250. So that's how that works. And then, so if the area does not contain the mouse position, then what we need to do is we need to set scroll to equal offset. So we need to set this variable to whatever we're passing in. So we need to say else scroll equals offset. And then we're going to return scroll. So the reason for this is because if we scroll down here like this, if this else statement is not here, this else scroll equals offset, as soon as we leave this window with our mouse, it will scroll all the way back up to 0. But then whenever we put our mouse back in, it'll scroll all the way back down here again. We don't want that. We want it to stay where it's at, regardless of where our mouse is. So, I believe that is it for our GUI area. So now we need to actually implement this stuff. So in here, we need to change these variables to our GUI area. So right here, I'm going to comment this out for now. I'm going to say private static int area equals 0. So our current area is going to equal 0 as an integer. And we're just going to use it to point to whatever current area or whatever area in this list that we're currently looking at or using, whatever. So then in here, we're going to say private static list of GUI areas equals new array list of GUI area. All right, so now we've got an array list of GUI area instead of an array list of rect, and instead of using a whole rect for the area, we're just using a pointer. All right. Let's see here. I think in the prepare right here, we need to change these values. So right here, we're just saying areas.add application.getRect. Well, area is not a list of recs anymore. So we need to say areas.add new GUI area, and then it is going to pass in application.getRect. So then that adds the new GUI area instead. Now here it's going to say area equals areas.get areas.size -1. Well, we don't want that. Whenever we prepare, what we're going to do is we're just going to set this to equal 0. Because anytime we prepare the GUI, we're always at the first element in the array, or in the list. Now, what else do we got here? All right, right here. So button and centered button, which I'm using down here, which we need to change in the future to equal just a layout button, is going to be the exact same thing. So we'll just be able to copy and paste this. Now what we need to do here is we need to add the what the hell do you call it? Add the scroll to the area. I'm trying to think of the best approach to do this. Let's comment that out. And we'll still use that variable name, but let's go GUI area A equals areas dot get area. So we'll just go ahead and cache the current area. Jesus. So we'll go ahead and cache the current area. And let's go ahead and do this variable up here. It's going to equal r dot add position a dot area. Okay, so to be exactly the same as this, we're just going to pass in the area from the GUI area. And to add the scroll, let's just say rf.y plus equals a dot scroll. All right, and that should be it. That should do everything it needs for the button. So we're basically doing exactly what we did before, but we're just adding the scroll to the current Y position, because we're not going to do horizontal scrolling yet, because right now we're just doing the basics, what we really need at this moment in time. We're just going to do the vertical. Later it'll be a lot easier. Everybody will already understand how the scrolling works, so horizontal will be pretty easy to add. So we're just going to copy that and come down here, then paste it, because this is basically the exact same code. All right. I don't think I need to change anything in box. I know there's not a red mark, but I think there's some things that I'm going to have to change that does not have a red mark. All right. So draw texture with texture coordinates. Now this is going to be the one that we're going to have to change the most. So I don't think we have to worry if area is null anymore. No, we are. All right, let's go ahead and comment this out. I'm just commenting just so I have something to look at and kind of give me a reference on what I need to be doing. So let's say GUI area A equals areas dot get area. So we'll go ahead and cache that out again. We'll say if a dot area equals null, then return. So we'll just do exactly what we did up here. Now for the get intersection, you're gonna have to say rect r, yeah, that's what I called it, equals a dot area dot get intersection new rect, and it's going to be very similar to this one up here. I'm just going to have to a dot area dot x draw rect dot y. Hold on here. Draw rect dot y plus area dot y. Now a dot area dot y. Draw rect dot width. Draw rect dot height. I guess I could have just copied that and just added a couple things. But here, we are going to have to do this. And draw rect dot y minus a dot scroll. Yes. Okay, I believe that's it. I believe it's minus a dot scroll. We'll see. Okay, so then that offsets the y position. Now for x and y of this. Gonna have to, if I can go a dot, oops. You freaking a dot. A, get off there, dot. And for the y, let's subtract a dot scroll. Right? What am I missing? That shouldn't have done anything to that. Well, I guess it did. Two, three, four. One. Two. Oh. That one. There we go. All right, so then that changes our Y position for draw texture. And I believe that is it for that. All right, so now begin area, end area. We also need to add the set scroll view method as well. So this will actually set the scroll view onto the given area. So let's go public static int set scroll capital V int scroll height int offset. And so this will be the highest available, or the highest scroll value. So it'd be the whole thing. So with set scroll view, let's go GY area A equals areas dot get area, cache that like normal, then a dot scroll height equals scroll height. And that sets the scroll height, and then we're going to return a dot scroll pass in offset. So a dot scroll is actually going to adjust the scroll between, in this case, like 250 and 0. And it's going to make sure that it's clamped inside of there, and then return it back to us, which is in turn going to return it back to the function that called it. And that's it for set scroll view. So begin area. What do I need to do with you? To GY area A equals areas dot get area. For one, I need to add a dot that still doesn't satisfy you. A dot. There we go. A dot area dot get intersection new rect a dot x plus blah blah blah. Let's go with a dot area dot y minus a dot scroll. Yeah, that looks right. There's only one way to tell. And area is just going to equal area dot size minus 1. Oh, this does not equal that. It's going to be new GUI area. It's going to need a new GUI area and not pass in just a rect. Alright, so with end area, we're going to say if areas dot size equals 1, let's go ahead and return that normal. Area dot remove blah, blah, blah. And I believe all I have to do is just this. So just set areas back just like that. And I think, not 100% sure, we will see. I believe that's all for scrolling. So I don't want to do render assets yet. Let's do render types. And I need the amount of values. So say scroll. Did I add a scroll yet? No. Say private int scroll equals 0. So we're gonna let's do scroll 1. Scroll 1 equals 0. So scroll 1 equals GUI dot set scroll view, and then for the scroll height, for now, let's just put in some wild number. Do 1,000 and offset pass and scroll 1. All right. So, if any of you have ever used Unity in their GUI system, you'll notice that whenever you begin a scroll view, you always end it. Well, in my implementation of it, you don't need to end it or really begin it, you just set it. So, yeah, I mean, there's no real reason to end it, because whenever you end an area, it automatically closes it. So let's see if we're gonna have some errors. Oh, there we go. We got some scrolling action going on. Now, one thing we're going to have an issue with is we are using this right here. rect_s equals GUI.box, temp box. Then we're going to begin an area inside of the box, draw the label in the area. In theory, that sounds nice. The only issue is with our area, because this is our current area inside of the box. Well, if I scroll down a little, now this is the area. It doesn't go all the way up to where it was before. So, if I click on fonts, if I scroll, you will notice that fonts does not scroll with it. It stays at that area. And that's because, like I just said, the beginning of the area is up here. So when we're passing 0, 0, so we're wanting to draw it at the top of the area is moving with it. So to change this for now, for it to just work normal, let's just go ahead and comment all that out. I don't need all that. Just that. And let's pass in box. And that should be it. That should do it. That should fix that little issue. All right, so now if I come down here and I scroll, there we go. Now it scrolls like how it should. So, since we have some random value passed in there, we passed in, what, 1,000? We need to calculate this so that it's not, you know, some flat number, and you only scroll it if we need to scroll it. So let's say data type dot values dot length times 26. All right, so this is going to automatically change as we see fit. So the more data type values there is, the higher it's going to scroll, and it's going to scroll to the size of the button. So if we start this, we should not be able to scroll anywhere because it doesn't go all the way. So it should. Oh, really? You're going to act all janky? Okay, we've got an issue going on there. Let's go ahead and I may have to fix that tomorrow because we're really up there in time. Or not tomorrow, but in the beginning of next episode. Let's go ahead and go to data type. Types of data are resources, logic workspace. Okay. So we have font, material. We need scene. We need script. All right. So then that will give us 2 more data types, because that's what we need to display anyways inside of there. I think I'm having an issue with it being too small. Like the scroll, because the scroll is smaller than... Yeah, because now we're not having the issue. Alright, so there we go. Now, what we're going to have an issue with right now is, if we click right here, it's going to click up there. Click down here, it's going to click up there. It's because we're not offsetting the pick for our buttons. So we will actually fix that in the beginning of the next episode. But for now, as you can tell, scrolling is working perfectly fine. And next episode we will do some more of this, but we'll finish the rest of the windows with scroll. And we're not going to be able to add the scroll bars yet. That's a whole nother beast. But we will eventually get to that further down the road whenever that actually matters. Right now we can scroll without having to use a scroll bar anyways. So as you can tell, it scrolls all the way down to as far as it can. Can also do it to this. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do assets as well. Oh god, that's really annoying. You know what? I cannot just leave that like that. Give me just a second and let me figure out. I believe it's inside a button, but I'm going to go ahead and do this and I'll show you the code. Okay. The issue, stupid me, was this right here. I put plus equals instead of minus equals. That was my bad. So if you just go into button, change rf.y plus equals to minus equals, and probably should just go ahead and do it for centered button as well. Go ahead and do that. So that will fix the clicking issue that we were having, clicking the wrong position. And let's see here. List of fonts. I times 26. So it's exactly the same. So let's go private int scroll2 equals 0. And we're going to say, copy that. And after the list, say scroll2 equals fonts dot size times 26, the same. Okay, so we'll do this, copy it, paste it, replace this with materials. Paste it, replace this with shaders. And so on and so forth for all of these. Skins. Sprites. Textures. All right, that should do it, but we need to reset scroll2, because if I'm thinking correctly, this should add kind of a, it should mess with the scroll. Okay, I really need to change, like, fix that. Oh, I see what it's doing. It's like flashing between top and bottom. It shouldn't be able to scroll anyways. But yeah, give me just a second and I will get that all going. All right, so let's go ahead and fix this glitchiness issue. So, after taking a look at it, I realized that my code right here, what we need to do is we need to take leftover and let's go ahead and paste it right there. I'm going to say if leftover is lower than 0, lower or equal to 0, then we're going to say, let's go ahead and do this, scroll equals 0. If not, then we're going to do this. You know what? Let's take this. Paste it in there. There. So now we broke it down into one line. There we go. That looks cleaner. Hopefully it didn't screw anything up. Alright, so now when we're inside this window, it's not gonna glitch out on us. And we fixed this, So we can click on all of these and they work just fine. Let's test our... Oh, I can't test my scroll because those stay the same size. Okay, so it should work exactly the same as these asset types over here. So if we have more assets than what we can display in here, then it should just scroll just like anything else. So once we get into putting more assets in here, we will put that to the test. Because right now we just don't have enough assets to actually reach all the way down there. So in the next episode, what I want to do is I want to get scrolls in the hierarchy, and I want to get scrolls in the inspector. And not only that, but I also want to get double clicking on assets. So if I say go to textures and I double click on bootload, I want it to open up bootload and whatever program I have that opens up PNGs. Same thing with scripts. We'll have scripts displaying in here as well. That way we can double click on it and it'll open up whatever editor, so that we don't have to be in the Eclipse IDE. We can actually be fully standalone and double click on the script and it'll just open it up in Notepad++ or whatever application you have to open up scripts. So that'll be awesome. That'll completely strip us from having to use the IDE outside of building the engine itself. So, and I don't know. Probably won't have time to do right clicking, but yeah, we can do double clicking. So we will get all that stuff done next week. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you then.